how China could conquer the world. Now, a lot of people think that it's not possible, right? That China just couldn't conquer it. Well, I'm gonna say that there are ways that they could do it, and they're doing it now. They're trying to, right? They're working towards it, right? The number one thing is the debt systems, right? The way that they put other countries in debt. Now, someone like Serpinsa actually talked about this in his video, and I'm going to link it down in the description, and you can check it out and kind of watch that video. Well, you know, there's this thing where they put other countries in debt, especially like Africa. They'll go there, put them in debt, and say, well, we're helping you, we're building roads, we're doing this, but you have to repay us, you have to let us use your ports.
Protests erupted last year when Sri Lanka was forced to hand over control of the failed Hambantota port project over to China, after it found itself billions of dollars in debt to Beijing. Right,
and then when they can't repay, they just take their port, right? So one of the ways that they can do this is by putting other countries in debt. And you know, Europe and America and a lot of the Western world have told other countries to be very careful of this, especially countries like the Philippines, to be careful of having debt to China, because it really is something that if you're a smaller country, you can be controlled, right? Because China is a very, very strong country. The number two thing is to build dependency. Now, this is something that China works really well. And this kind of ties into the first one with Taiwan and Hong Kong, of course. The reason that they're going to become China again in the future eventually, and whether people like it or not, this is the way that it's happening. Hong Kong really depends on China, right? For trade and things like that. You know, Taiwan, right? A lot of their trade GDP actually comes from China. A lot of the millionaires in Taiwan are doing business here in China, and that's why they're millionaires, right? So that's the thing to understand, is that China is really smart about this type of thing. They've really built dependency, right? From Hong Kong and Taiwan. You think about it, like Hong Kong right now, with the things that are going on in Hong Kong, the protests, Hong Kong doesn't have a military, right? They're dependent on China to protect them, right? And so at the end of the day, if they ever need China, China will help them, right? And they will depend on China for that, and they will eventually, of course, have to pay back that debt, of course, right? So that is one thing that they do really well, is making the world depend on them, and it's working very well, actually. People expansion. So the next thing to talk about is people expansion. So this is kind of an inadvertent and indirect control, but Chinese people are everywhere, right?
Nowhere is this more obvious than Valley Boulevard, which is lined for miles by Chinese restaurants, shops, and one of my faves, 99 Ranch.
Oh, pick up a big bag. We have everything in here.
American universities really depend on Chinese students now, right? They really depend on the money from the rich Chinese students that come to America. They really, really depend on that, right? So Chinese people kind of move to Canada, they move to America.
And so when we came here, the property value was around $1 million. And now,
a house like this.
Well, like for a house like the one that, like this, it would be $1 million. But now this is like 3 million, 5 million.
So the next thing about that is the simple fact that they even do that here in China, right? So you have like Xinjiang and Tibet and all of these different places, right? And even in Guangdong, right? They've moved Han people, right? Everywhere across the world, right? But then they move, you know, Mandarin speakers from, say, Beijing, they'll move them down here. And then they'll tell everyone to speak Mandarin, right? No more Cantonese. And they've really done this thing where they've kind of integrated their people into society, right? To the point that it's really difficult to do anything. Like, could America, you know, actually have issues with China? Sure. But the issue is that a lot of Americans are of Chinese descent, right? So you have this inner battle, this inner conflict of the things that you could do, because Chinese people are everywhere, right? Chinese people from the small towns are moved to the Chinese big cities, and that's how they develop their people, right? Within their own country and abroad, right? So it is a way of controlling, right? So it's just something that China is very smart about, they've learned about, and they do a very good job about it. The next thing is logistics, about moving things around, right? You know, this sea bridge that they've created here in China is, I believe, could be wrong, don't shoot me if I'm wrong, but it could be the longest bridge in the world perhaps, or at least the longest bridge in Asia. So they connect Hong Kong and Macau, and you can essentially, as a Chinese person, just you can go in a big circle, and you can go all around. They've built the train here from Guangzhou down to Hong Kong. You can get there directly. I love it. It's great. But it's really smart for them, right? Because they've essentially built this dependency of Hong Kong and China together, because so many Chinese people go there to shop, so many Chinese people go there to buy things, that they're really dependent, right? And they've done that with this Belt and Road, right? They've really built up to India, right? They even built a bridge to North Korea. Not that North Korea actually finished the bridge, losers, but you know, they've really done this on purpose so that people could get from China to other countries, right? And they've done this because they're very smart. They realize that it allows other countries to depend on China more, of course. So the next thing to talk about is purchasing of land. Now, Chinese people can't really purchase land in their own country. They can lease it for an amount of time, but they can't own the land, right? And that's the problem in a way, because in America, as a Chinese person, you can go to America and buy land. A Chinese person can go to Canada and buy land. So their people are buying foreign land, right? And their companies are going to America and buying foreign land. And they're gaining control of the land. It's actually really, really smart, right? You see prices in California, prices in Canada have really skyrocketed in certain places just because of how many Chinese people live there, right? How many Chinese businesses are there. And I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing, and I'm not saying that it's something they're forcing, but it is definitely happening, and it does offer control, right? So the next thing is the control of media, controlling of media. Now, one thing about California, and there being a lot of Chinese people there, we know that Hollywood has essentially been bought by China.
The Chinese government only allows a certain number of foreign films to enter the country each year, and each one has to pass through the government censorship agency.
There's kind of contradictory impulses. On the one hand, China wants to be the best at everything. They want to succeed. On the other hand, they want to promote what the leader is promoting, Chinese propaganda or socialist core values.
Why they would do that, I don't know. But it allows them to control the media, right? To control the movies and the music and things like that. They will gain more and more control over this type of thing. Even gaming, like League of Legends, yes, it's made by an American company, but it's owned by a Chinese company, right? So they will gain control over this type of thing. And even the media that goes to our kids, our families and things like that will be Chinese controlled, right? Very smart thinking. You control the media, you control the people. If you can control the land, you can control people. And this is the way that it is here in China. And it's slowly but surely expanding to the West and completely through Europe even, of course. So it's a very smart way that China could conquer the world, essentially. The next thing is controlling technological IP theft. You know, basically, whether people want to admit it or not, China does innovate. They actually do. I know. It hurts the feelings of people, but they do innovate here, actually. And if they control that tech, then they gain control of industries, right? And that's one of the things. You have companies like Huawei that are, you know, creating things now, right? And they are patenting them and using our system that they can abuse, but we choose not to abuse our own system, right?
American companies are forced to turn over key technology just to enter the market. They describe it as a kind of pay-to-play in the world's second largest economy. Then matchmaking. In some key industries, like China's energy, telecom, and auto sectors, U.S. companies have to form joint ventures with domestic firms. That means transferring valuable technology, intellectual property, to the local company, allowing then local firms to create their own new products in their own new technology.
So they're really smart in that way. They'll abuse the system, they'll patent things and control things, and we really don't, right? So it's a major, major thing, is that China could conquer the world by using our own system against us, right? So that's the thing, like, as long as everyone uses IP and they use it correctly, it's great. But as of right now, China's not, right? They're using this opportunity to patent a lot of things, and they're being sued for it, but nothing changes, right? It doesn't change here in China. That just doesn't work in China, so yeah. So expanding payment systems. One thing is the cashless society here. You can use Alipay and WeChat in other countries many times, especially even in taxis. Like if you're a tourist and you go to Japan or Thailand, they will have it set up to where you can use Alipay or WeChat. And if this spreads throughout the world, they will be collecting a lot of information, right? A lot of pay information, sending it back to China, and it's a way of gathering information and conquering the world in a way, right? Because they will know better than anyone else if you're using their payment systems. Now, I agree, America really needs a better payment system. Cash is really outdated, right? But I don't think that they necessarily should just give it to China, right, and let them use their systems in America, because I think that each country needs their own system, right? But China's system is really good. It's really universal in all of China. So it's really hard to mimic that, right? But this is just another way that essentially China could control the world, is if they can expand their systems to other countries. The next thing is EV and solar, so electric vehicles. So electric vehicles here in China are everywhere. BYD, these companies, they have cars and buses, and this is the future, right? That is the future. Gas vehicles are going away. They're going away in time. And China is producing more of that than anyone else in the world at this point. They're controlling it. Tesla has came here. They've offered Elon Musk a tax break and said, hey, tax break for you, Mr. Tesla. And so of course Tesla came here, and now they're here and they're going to stay here, right? So that is another way. China controls the electric vehicle companies. Then they're taking a lot of market share away from America and Germany and these other countries that produce a lot of vehicles, right? So these other countries, we really need to catch up on this type of thing with the electric vehicles. Electric bikes and scooters and things like that are everywhere here in China, and that is the future. So by controlling this type of thing, China is controlling the future of other countries. So that's all I wanted to talk about in today's video. Like, comment, subscribe, and have a good day.